The median net worth in America, the exact middle point of the entire country's wealth distribution, is around $192,000. Not income, not salary, not the value of the house someone dreams about owning, actual net worth. Everything a person owns minus everything they owe. That number represents decades of work, saving, investing, and sacrifice. Think about that for a second. The people you pass every day on the street. The person sitting next to you during your morning commute. The stranger standing behind you at the grocery store. Half of them will never build more than that amount of wealth during their entire lifetime. But if you want to know the number that truly changes the direction of your financial life, it is not $192,000.it is zero. Because the biggest financial transformation does not happen when you become a millionaire. It happens when you stop being financially underwater. The moment your assets finally become larger than your debts, something changes. You are no longer working only to pay yesterday's mistakes. You are finally building tomorrow. Going from student loans, credit card debt, and endless monthly payments to being completely debt-free is one of the most powerful financial turning points a person can experience. It is not just a number on a spreadsheet. It is a psychological shift. For years, your money has been fighting against you. Every paycheck disappears before you even enjoy it. Every unexpected expense feels like a threat. Then suddenly, the pressure begins to disappear. You are no longer breathing financial exhaust. You are finally breathing oxygen. And the strange thing is, most people barely notice this moment. They treat it like another ordinary day. But this is exactly why so many people spend the next 30 or 40 years making the same financial mistakes over and over again. They never understand that the game has already changed. The internet has created a massive industry built around selling people the dream of easy wealth, a new investment strategy, a millionaire morning routine, a secret stock pick, a financial guru promising the one thing rich people know that you don't. They all want you to believe wealth is a straight line. Just save some money, put it into an account, wait long enough, and eventually you become rich. But that is not how wealth actually works. Wealth is not a smooth road. It is a staircase. And every staircase has major steps. Each step changes the rules. You can think of these wealth levels like different radio frequencies. Most people are listening to one station their entire life. They work, they earn, they spend, they save whatever is left. But wealthy people operate on a different frequency. They are not necessarily smarter. They are not magically better with money. They simply understand a different set of rules. When you cross each financial threshold, you start seeing opportunities that were invisible before. Different tax strategies, better investment choices, access to private opportunities, professionals who help protect your assets, a legal system designed around preserving wealth. The world does not change. Your position inside the world changes. If you do not understand these wealth levels, you can easily become one of millions of high-income professionals who look successful but still feel financially trapped. A person can earn $200,000 a year, drive a nice car, own an expensive home, wear expensive clothes, and still feel one emergency away from financial stress. Because income is not wealth. Income is what you make. Wealth is what continues working when you stop. That difference separates people who look rich from people who are actually financially free. One of the most honest pieces of financial advice in modern history came from Charlie Munger, the longtime partner of Warren Buffett. He said getting your first $100,000 is extremely difficult, but you have to do it. He did not say it would be comfortable. He did not say it would be exciting. He simply said you have to find a way. Even if that means driving an old car, living below your means, skipping unnecessary purchases, making sacrifices other people are unwilling to make. Because the first 6 figures are not about becoming wealthy. They are about building the machine that creates wealth. Imagine starting from zero. You invest $10,000 every year into a simple broad stock market index fund. Assume a long-term average return of 7%. It takes roughly 8 years to reach your first $100,000. And those 8 years are brutal. Not because the math is complicated, because emotionally, it feels like nothing is happening. You keep working, you keep saving, you keep investing, but your account balance moves slowly. During this period, almost all the progress comes from you. Your discipline, your patience, your willingness to delay gratification, your ability to ignore what everyone else is buying. The market contributes very little. You are the engine pulling the train uphill. But then something magical happens. You cross that first major threshold, and the game starts changing. You continue doing the exact same thing, same investment, same contribution, same discipline. But now your money starts helping. The second $100,000 arrives faster. The third arrives faster than the second. Eventually, the growth from your investments begins competing with the money you personally contribute. This is the flywheel effect. A $100,000 portfolio earning 7% produces about $7,000 every year. That $7,000 does not care whether you are working overtime. It does not care whether you are sleeping. It does not care whether you are watching television or scrolling through your phone. Your money is quietly producing more money. That is the moment when investing stops feeling like a sacrifice and starts becoming a system. But this is also where many people destroy their own progress. After years of discipline, they finally see 6 figures in their retirement account. They feel successful. They feel like they have suffered enough. They tell themselves, I worked hard, I deserve to enjoy life now. And that emotion is completely normal. But it can also be financially dangerous. Because many people celebrate the beginning of wealth by destroying the very habits that created it. They upgrade the car, they buy the bigger house, they increase their monthly expenses. They turn temporary success into permanent obligations. The engine finally starts running, and they take the engine apart. Imagine someone who spends years saving their first $100,000. They are disciplined, they follow the rules, they avoid unnecessary spending. Then one day they look at that account and think, I finally made it. So they finance a luxury vehicle, move into a more expensive apartment, start spending like someone who already has millions. Their savings rate collapses. A few years later, their wealth has barely moved. The market did not fail them. The economy did not fail them. They simply stopped feeding the machine. The biggest threat after reaching your first financial milestone is not the market. It is your own lifestyle. The first rule of wealth is simple. Do not interrupt the process. The hardest part is not becoming rich. The hardest part is giving your money enough time to become powerful. Because once the flywheel begins moving, patience becomes your greatest advantage. When your investable assets reach around 500,000, the rules of your financial life begin to change. This is the point where money stops being just something you save. It starts becoming something that actively works for you. A $500,000 portfolio earning an average long-term return of around 8% has the potential to generate roughly $40,000 of annual growth. Using a more conservative 4% withdrawal strategy, that portfolio could provide about $20,000 per year without touching the original capital. Combine that with Social Security income, and many Americans could create a surprisingly stable lifestyle, especially in areas where the cost of living is lower. But the biggest change is not the money itself. It is the freedom that money creates. Because wealth is not really about buying more things. It is about having more choices. When your boss asks you to accept unreasonable working conditions, you think differently. When you negotiate your salary, you negotiate differently. When you consider changing careers, you have more confidence. Why? Because you are no longer completely dependent on one paycheck. You know that if necessary, you can step away. That ability to walk away is one of the most valuable things wealth can buy. But there is a trap at this level that many people never recognize. They confuse owning assets with having usable wealth. This is called the liquidity illusion. A person may proudly say, "I have a net worth of $500,000. But when you look closer, most of that wealth may be trapped inside their house. And that creates a problem. A house can increase in value, but your walls cannot pay your grocery bill. Your roof cannot generate monthly income. Your driveway cannot fund your retirement. Real financial freedom does not come from owning expensive things. It comes from owning productive assets. Assets that can be invested. Assets that can generate cash flow. Assets that continue working even when you are not. That is why two people with the exact same net worth can live completely different financial lives. One person has wealth that works. The other person has wealth that simply looks impressive. For generations, Americans viewed $1 million as the ultimate financial dream. Becoming a millionaire meant you had made it. But today, the meaning of that word has changed. Many households can technically be called millionaires because of rising home prices. But true financial power comes from having $1 million in liquid, investable assets. There is a huge difference between being rich on paper and being financially powerful in reality. A house valued at $1 million does not mean you have $1 million working for you. A stock portfolio worth $1 million does. That difference is the hidden dividing line in modern wealth. Once you have substantial liquid assets, you enter a different financial world. According to the SEC, investors who meet certain wealth requirements may qualify as accredited investors. This gives them access to opportunities most ordinary investors cannot participate in. Private equity, private real estate deals, venture capital, alternative investments. The government does not restrict these opportunities because of some secret conspiracy. The reason is simple: these investments can carry significant risk. And regulators assume wealthy investors have enough financial protection to handle potential losses. But crossing into this world also introduces a new danger: the financial industry. This is where many wealthy people lose money without realizing it. Not through bad investments, through FEs. Imagine two investors, Daniel and Marco. Both are 42 years old. Both earn similar incomes. Both save consistently. Daniel chooses a simple approach. He invests in a low-cost total market index fund with a tiny expense ratio. It takes him less than 15 minutes to set up. Marco wants to feel wealthy, so he hires a financial advisor. The advisor wears a nice suit, calls him twice a year, takes him to expensive restaurants, and charges a 1% annual management fee. At first, that fee seems harmless. 1% does not sound like much. But over decades, it becomes a financial leak. A $1 million portfolio earning 7% annually for 30 years. After paying a 1% fee, may grow to around $5.7 million. The same portfolio with a low-cost 0.25% fee could grow to around $6.8 million. The difference is more than $1 million. That money did not disappear overnight. It quietly vanished year after year. That is why some of the biggest financial mistakes are not dramatic. They are small costs repeated for decades. When your wealth reaches the $3 million to $5 million range, money changes meaning again. At this level, your problem is no longer survival. Your problem becomes preservation. Using the 4% rule, 3 million can potentially provide about $120,000 per year. 5 million can potentially provide about $200,000 per year. For most people, this represents a completely different level of financial security. You are no longer just trying to pay bills, you are designing your life. But something interesting happens at this stage. Many wealthy people still feel anxious. Why? Because wealth changes your comparison group. A person with $500,000 compares themselves to ordinary workers. A person with $5 million starts comparing themselves to people with private jets, private islands, and billion-dollar companies. The problem is not always how much money you have. Sometimes the problem is who you compare yourself to. At this level, wealthy people stop asking, how can I make more money? They start asking, how do I protect what I already built? They think about tax planning, asset protection, estate structures, trusts, business organization, generational wealth. Because once you have created significant wealth, the biggest threat is no longer failure. It is poor planning. Imagine someone spends 20 years building a successful business. At age 50, they sell the company and walk away with $4 million after taxes. They believe they have completed the hardest part. They retire. They invest casually. They keep the same old will they created decades earlier. They never think about tax strategy or estate planning. Then something unexpected happens. Their wealth becomes trapped in a complicated legal process. Their family spends years dealing with paperwork, taxes, and unnecessary expenses. The money they worked decades to create loses significant value. They succeeded at building wealth, but they failed at protecting it. That is the difference between someone who earns money and someone who understands wealth. At higher levels, you are no longer just playing the wealth game. You become the person designing the system. At the top of the financial pyramid are ultra-high net worth individuals. People with $10 million, $30 million, or more. These people represent a tiny percentage of the population, but they control a massive amount of financial assets. At this level, wealth is no longer just a collection of stocks and bonds. It becomes an entire financial operation. They create family offices. They hire attorneys, tax experts, investment professionals. Their goal is not simply making more money. Their goal is protecting wealth across generations. The irony is that many ordinary investors make the same mistake. They try to copy billionaires. They believe complicated strategies are the secret. They think if a billionaire uses hedge funds and complex investments, they should too. But that logic is backwards. The ultra-rich use complicated strategies because their problems are complicated. Your problem is usually much simpler. Build capital, invest consistently, avoid unnecessary fees. Give your money time. The boring strategy is often the strategy that wins. So where should you focus? If you have less than 100,000, your mission is simple. Increase your income, control your expenses, save aggressively, build the engine. Do not let lifestyle inflation destroy your progress. If you are between $100,000 and $500,000, protect your momentum, reduce unnecessary fees. Use broad market index funds. Take advantage of tax-efficient accounts. Make sure your money is actually working. If you are above $1 million, start thinking like a wealth owner. Protect your assets. Understand taxes. Build a long-term financial system. Do not allow unnecessary costs to slowly destroy decades of hard work. Wealth is not created by luck. It is not created by finding a secret investment. It is not created by chasing shortcuts. Wealth is the predictable result of understanding the rules and allowing mathematics to work. Earn, save, invest, protect, repeat. The question is not whether the tools exist, they already do. The only question is, will you spend your entire life working for money? Or will you build a system where money finally starts working for you?